Hello. Today we're making a crossbody bag with two sections, two compartments at the top, and a little slip pocket that you can put your cell phone in if you so desire. Okay, this is not from any pattern. It's one I made up 1 or 2 years ago. Don't even know. But this is it. We're starting with 9.5 by 10.5 is the cut size for 4 outer pieces and 4 lining pieces. I have a lightweight woven interfacing on the lining, and the outer fabric has been quilted to another piece of fabric that you won't see. Little diagonal cross hatches. I believe I quilted at the 60-degree or 30-degree line. Okay. Like I said, zipper closure at the top. I have cut zipper tape about 1 inch shorter, so approximately 8.5 inches long. I'm going to use the lighter to singe the ends just a little bit to prevent fraying. Okay. And now we're going to put tabs on the zipper ends. I have a piece of fabric. Let me see. It is, I think I cut it about, it was 1.5 inches wide. Yes. 1.5 inches wide. First, it has interfacing on it so that it's not too frail. Folded to the inside. And then once again, okay, and we're just going to insert the zipper. And start sewing like this. And close the ends. Give it a go. First I need to thread the machine. Hang on. Still working with my last project's thread. How funny. If you're interested, today I'm sewing on a Brother straight stitch only machine. It is the Brother Nouveau 1500S. I don't think they make this model anymore. I've had it for 7 years, I think. It is a workhorse, though. Let's see if I can get it threaded. Honestly, I'm not sure what thread I'm using. I can probably find the link on Amazon. I'm not sure if it's Selric or something else. There we go. Obviously, my eyes and brain are not as young as they used to be. So, got it folded like bias tape. I'm going to put the zipper in and close it like that, and then stitch down the edge. What is my machine is, it's at about a 3 right now. All the fabrics are quilting cotton. Now I'm going to take my second zipper, the open end, and just slide it in. Not all the way up next to it, but pretty close. Trying to keep it as straight as possible. Stitching over that. Just bending the other end over. And I should have done this one second. You can cut between each one if you need to, if it's easier. On shorter zippers. I do. Yeah. I like to go back and put a second line of stitching. So we've got one right there close to the edge of the fabric. Then I'll go back about 1/8 of an inch away. I just feel like that gives it a little more security. Okay. Now I'm just going to trim that off. One of them's not perfectly straight. Alright, the first end I bent over. I did not make sure it was flat. So I'm going to there's a seam ripper. Real life sewing, people. You know, it's enough. I'm just going to cut it off. And sew it in this one. I can do that second line. And the zippers are ready. I'm going to go ahead and do the crossbody strap. I have about a 60-inch length of fabric that was 4 inches wide, interfaced, and folded together. Now I'm going to flip it out like that. Sew across the end. So now, flip it out, you've got a finished end. You don't have to worry about anything later on. Okay, so flat, fold it in half, and then fold it in half right sides together, and then just sew across the end. Trim it at an angle so there's less bulk in it, and flip it right side out. Okay, see, we got a nice straight corner edge. Now we're gonna top stitch down all 4 sides. Okay, start at the end or anywhere you want, and lengthen the stitch to about a 4, and go down the side. I'm going to go, well, normal speed for me, fast. You can use a magnetic seam gauge if you want to hold your fabric in place. I can stick that right there, or you can just put your finger against the bed of the machine and let it be your guide. That is, you know, how I normally do it, but here's the seam guide. Okay. What's nice about that is then you can just kind of let go. stop a stitch or two from the end, raise your foot, pivot, go across the short end, again pivot, pull it through. And the second side is usually easier, quicker, because you're not worried about the fabric coming apart. Down to the edge, pivot. Okay. Now if you have a thread zapper, you can use it or just melt the ends of the thread to help them stay in place, right? I have a thread zapper, but I'm not sure where it is. Okay, now, I didn't show you the hardware, but I'm going to use one 1-inch slider for an adjustable strap, 2 swivel hooks, 1 inch as well, and 2 rectangle rings, 1 inch. Okay, we'll save those for a minute. But let's go ahead and take care of this. Get everything out of the way. You're going to take one end of your strap, go over and under, right there. Alright, I like to pull it out maybe an inch or so, and then you can either stitch straight across a few times, make a box with an X in the middle of it, or use a rivet. Even if you're using a rivet, I would still suggest at least a few lines of stitching. So let's see. And I'm going to reduce my stitch length. About a 3 here. Okay, I've pivoted at the edges, and now I'm right back where I started. So let's angle it over, let's see, to the other corner, do a diagonal stitch, and then at this point, normally I go back across the bottom or the top depending on where I am. When I get to the end there, I can stitch across to the other corner, making the X. Okay, easy peasy. Now, take the end that was stitched down, alright, and have that laying out on top. And you're going to insert the other end into a swivel hook like this, and you want to make sure that you come in from the other side of the swivel hook. Okay, because then when you pull the strap back, now you're going to go over the end you just sewed to the bar and back down the other side. Okay, and now you have an adjustable strap. Okay. And there's the swivel hook at the other end. So you're going to take your other swivel hook, making sure that this is pretty side out, and then go over the bar, and again leave about an inch or so showing. Fold it, and then either do your straight lines or your box to secure it. Okay. There we go, across the front, down the side, across the bottom, up the first side back to the top, where we're going to angle down, hit the bottom corner, across the bottom, and then diagonally back to the top corner. And sometimes I'll go back across the top to the starting part. Okay. Threads are kind of long. I'm going to trim them. And then I'll cinch them. Okay. There we go. Your adjustable crossbody strap is finished. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten it all the way. Okay. And set it aside. Now we have the little strap connectors. Same thing, 4 inches by about 6 inches, interfaced. Fold longwise into the center and then over again. And you have a piece that is now 6 by 1. Don't worry about your edges, they're going to be sewn into a seam. And we're going to top stitch down both sides. Then I'm going to go across the bottom one just so that I don't have to cut the thread. So all the way to the bottom, across the other end. Here we go. Now we're going to cut it in half, like so. So now we have 2 pieces that are 1 by 3. Okay, we're going to take the rectangle ring, slide it on, and fold it in half. Now if you want, you can stitch across the ends just to hold it in place. Okay, here we go. 3 by 1. Fold it in half. There we go. That is ready. Okay, now we're ready for the zipper. Zipper 1, ready to go. Okay, we're going to take one of our outer fabrics, and I'm going to go ahead and position this about 1.5 inches in from the edge. Yeah, 1.5 inches in from the edge. See, right there. And go ahead and baste that on. Now we are going to sew the zipper in. A lot of people like to use glue or tape to hold their zippers in place to baste them, but I think it's just as easy to sew it in or use clips. Alright, so you can fold your fabric in half and find the center. Fold the zipper in half and find the center. And then place them right sides together, matching the centers if you want. Or you can just eyeball it, which is what I'm going to do. We want it fairly even. on both sides. About a finger's width. Okay, and based on the zipper, I like to do this right on the edge with a longer length, bumping it up to a 4. Okay, making sure the zipper tape is straight and lined up with the edge of the top edge of the fabric. Okay, now the zipper is sewn in place. Now we're going to take one of the lining pieces and place it right sides together. Again, if you want to use some double-sided tape, you can, or you can use clips like I'm showing you here to hold everything in place. I didn't match up my centers, I'm just matching up my ends. You can match up the centers if you want. And then you're going to go back and sew it down. If you're using a number 5 zipper, you can use about a 1/4 inch, maybe even a little bit bigger seam allowance. You want to lower your stitch length again. I think I put mine on 3, and I'm just going all along the top. And when you get down to the end of the zipper, where the zipper pull is, you may need to open it up, close the zipper, pull it the opposite direction that it is. Okay, and then keep stitching to the bottom. Okay, now the first side of the zipper is completely installed. Now I like to top stitch the outer portion only. Okay. I want to make sure that all of my seam allowances are going toward the outer fabric and that the rectangular ring is facing the lining and the zipper. Okay. And again, for this, you raise your stitch length. Stitch across that edge. Okay. And that is one side of our 4 completed. Now we're going to do the same thing with this side, only we don't have a rectangular ring to deal with. I'm going to get this all, go to the iron if you can, and press away from the zipper to keep it out of your way. And if you need to, you can pull the rectangular ring out of your way and pin it out of your way. I don't usually, but here I can use a safety pin to make sure that I don't have it in the way when I stitch on the rest of the zipper. So, second outer piece, lining up the centers, matching the top edge. Okay, longer stitch length, right sides together. Did I say that? I'm going to go ahead and close the zipper. Since I'm just stitching on the edge of the zipper tape, it's okay. Okay, all the way down. You can see it's basted in place. I'm going to stitch length back down, grab my other lining piece, pin or clip it in place, and then sew it together. Again, about a 1/4 inch seam allowance because I'm using a number 5 zipper, a handbag zipper. You might also see it called. Alright, close to the zipper, so I'm going to open it up and keep on stitching. Now, didn't cut the thread. Stitch length back to 4. Open this out so that everything is facing, the seam allowances are facing the outer fabric. The lining is facing the other lining. Okay, and here we go with the top stitch. And I think I cut the thread. Give these old eyes a second to thread. There we go. Lift it up every once in a while if you need to make sure everything is pointed the right direction. And just keep on going. Now, look at that. One side of our bag is coming together. Now we're going to work on the other one. So, I'm going to take one of my outer pieces and I'm going to line it up right here with the other one, with the one we just did, because I want to make sure that I put everything in the right place, right? We want our crossbody strap to go through these rectangular rings, but we want them on opposite sides of the bag, right? So I have this one, as we're looking at it, on the top, 1.5 inches from the edge. So I want this one 1.5 inches from the edge on the bottom, right there. Go ahead and baste that in place. Okay. All right, now let's look at the zipper. This one, we have the zipper pull on the end with the ring. We don't want that. Unless you want your zippers to open opposite edges, because these are the outsides of the bag, right? So if we put the opening, the zipper pull top to where the rectangular ring is, when everything is closed up and you're looking at the bag from the top, they would go opposite directions. So you want them to go the same direction. Line them up here. Make sure you've got that oriented in the direction you want it to go. And then we'll just follow the steps that we just did, lining up the zipper, basting it in place, sewing the lining on, top stitching with everything going toward the outer fabric except for the major lining piece, and then do the other side as well. Make sure your zipper's face down. Ordinarily, I'd be watching something on the computer, and you could call that distracted sewing, but not the case. Face down. Ready, people? It has been a long day. Here we go. Okay, right along the edge. So not only are we basting the zipper in place, we are also giving some extra stitches and basting to the rectangular ring, which is fabulous. Okay, here we go. Right sides together. Pin it or clip it if you need to. About a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Shorter stitch length. Not too short, because with so many layers of fabric, you don't want to get your fabric to get caught up in the machine or for it to struggle. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the zipper and stitch down the rest of the way. Up to a 4. I'm going to open this out so that everything is facing, the seam allowance is facing the outer fabric, and I'm going to top stitch. Length back down. Actually, no, we're going to base, so stitch length can stay at 4. And there we have first half of our zipper installed on the second side of our bag. So, right sides together, the outer to outer, match up the edges. You know, and really your sides should match, and then your zipper should automatically be centered if we did it right. It doesn't always happen, because I'm human, aren't you? Okay, there we go. Now, bring the stitch length down, layer everything together, and stitch again. 1/4 inch seam allowance, 3.5 stitch lengths. Open the zipper. No, the zipper's already good. Stitch length to 4. Everything that needs to be. Seam allowances going toward the outer fabric. And top stitch. And there we go. 2 halves of our bag are almost finished and ready to be put together. I see a stray thread here. Okay. Again, if you want to press these to the outside, go ahead. All right. Let's see if I did it right. It's going to go together like this. Yay. Okay. I'm going to unpin this so the safety pin isn't in my way. I'm going to grab my chalk pen. Really, for this marking, you can use whatever you want because you're not going to see it. So we are going to, essentially, we are going to sew two outside pieces together. Okay, look. The rectangle ring where we're going to snap on our strap is on the left side for me, the left side, because what both of them are. What we're doing is stitching together the inside to make a pocket, right? So when our bag is all together, it's going to look like this, right? And we want a box or a pocket right here in the middle. So we're going to take the two interior outside pieces and sew them together. Here, you know, if you want to clip it, you can line up so that you're straight everywhere you can be. I'm going to go ahead and clip them before I mark it. You can mark before you clip if that's how you prefer to do it. Now, I am going to draw a line 2 inches in. Okay. Actually, I have to unclip that. I'm going to go as far up to the top as I can and draw a line that's 2 inches from the side. Okay. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. And this part is kind of up to you, but 2 inches or 2.5 inches even is good. And that's what I'm going to do. Same thing at the bottom, 2 inches. And I should cross these lines. Right? So now I have chalk line, but you can use a friction pen, you can use a ballpoint pen, you can use a Sharpie, whatever you want to use. Now, this is a little bit more awkward. I'm going to go up as close to the stitch line as I can. You see I'm butting my ruler up as far as it'll go. And I'm going to mark 1/2 inch. Actually, I think maybe today I can go 1/4 inch from the top. Okay. And that is going to be my stitch line. So this is straight 2 inches all the way up, all the way around. I'm going to start, actually I'm going to start stitching down here, and I'm going to stitch up to the line that's, it's more than 1/4 inch, it's closer to 1/2 inch or 3/8 of an inch up from the top, okay? I'm going to use a shorter stitch length because I want everything to stay together. And there may be quite a bit of wear and tear on this seam from usage, but make sure your sides are lined up. Mine are, so I'm just going to go. And then when you get to the top, where your line is, make sure you back stitch. Go even farther. If you can go all the way up to the stitch line, you can, but I'm not. Okay. Now I'm going to cut my thread. Now for the other side, I'm going to start here. I stitched this line. Now I'm going to start here, stitch across the bottom, and then up the other side. You could do the bottom and a side first, it doesn't matter. But again, stitch, back stitch, and then stitch all the way across to where your lines intersect. Okay. I'll go ahead and back stitch, give it a couple there, lift my foot, pivot. Nope, I need to go one more stitch. And now go all the way up to the top of that side. Try to get them as even as you can, as far as distance from the top of the panel goes. Sounds like I forgot to move something. Oh. Tried to sew over a zipper pull. That ain't cool. Okay. Back stitch a couple of times. Cut the thread. And then I'm going to go ahead and singe those threads. And we are ready for the final stitches. I don't see anything I can singe there. Okay, now take your clips off, pull everything back out like it should be, and here's our bag. There's the pocket. You can put your phone in there, whatever you want. Okay, now open the zippers at least halfway. We're basically just sewing 2 zipper pouches, okay? You need to first one side and then the other. Okay, so I'm going to take 1 entire bag's worth of stuff. Outer, lining, lining, outer. Right, that's sewn to the other end, other side. Fold it out of the way, clip it out of the way, pin it out of the way, whatever you gotta do. Okay, and I usually just clip it a couple of times here. Okay, got that folded out of the way as far as I can, and I'll just have to press these somewhat normal stitch length. And here's the part, if you want to pin your edges together, clip your edges together, you can. We're going to end up sewing across the top, or across the bottom, down both sides, right? And then across the bottom of the lining fabric, but leave, 4, 5, 6 inches so that we can pull everything through later. Okay. Try to line up at the zipper with your zipper, the bulk of your zipper. If it points to the lining, that makes it a little easier. Now we're going to stitch this bag together with about a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, and that will be enough so that we're not sewing across the end of our zipper tab, right? Again, zipper folded to the inside, to the lining. Clip it. And we have to make sure that zipper's open so we can turn it. Now, it may be easier if you do one side at a time. Like, let's stitch across the bottom. Okay, I didn't clip it, but this one's pretty easy. My corners are lined up. My edges are lined up. About a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way across. And here would be another good place for your seam gauge. You want to use that. Once you find your seam allowance, pop it on there. All the way across. And yeah, I would go ahead, back stitch, cut the thread, and then you can see that you're going to be stitching up the side. And there's a little bit of bulk right here. So this would be a good place to use your clips, because you have to make sure that the other half is out of the way. Right? Put as many or as few clips as you want, but see how when I laid it down, that kind of opened up. So especially if you're not used to making these bags, get some clips in there to help it stay together. Okay, so now when I lay it down, there's not so much in the way of gapping. Okay, so here we go. And with that little seam gauge, I just lined it right up there, so it's going to be the same distance all the way around. Back stitch, sew up the side, removing clips as you go. And then when you get to the lining, you want to make sure if anything moved, you get it back in place. And then it goes right over the edge, close to the zipper tab. And I did not clip my lining. I'm just going to go, because I'm holding it together all the way down to the bottom. One more stitch to get me to the same distance. Pivot. Sew across make sure the fabric is lined up on the edge. Sew across 1.5 inches, 2 inches. Alright. And then you can either pick it up and start sewing again right here, or you can come back to your outer fabrics and sew them together. Let's do it that way. It's just easier to keep everything lined up from that side. Alright, here we go. I didn't clip it, but I'm going to make sure that that other bag is pushed in. Everything is lined up. And there we go. Just like a simple zipper pouch with a little bit in the way. And if you want, when you get to the top, you can do a little back stitch. Now, make sure my lining fabrics are together. I have something caught thread from the last stitch. Okay. Not really sure. Okay. Bottom edges are lined up. Yeah. Get down to about 3/8 of an inch and stop. And turn. Stitch 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and stop. Now, if you want, you can clip your corners to make it just a little bit easier when you turn it. I don't always, but I will for you. Now, that side is done. If you're using the polyester thread, go ahead and singe where you stopped and started sewing, or at least where you started. Okay. Now we're going to turn it right side out. Alright, we're going to open up the hole with our fingers, put our hand in, go all the way through. I mean, if you can get the corners, that's great. I have grabbed onto what's the pieces from the other bag. Alright. First, I'm going to make sure the zipper is open all the way, and it is. So now I'm just going to reach in and pull through. It's easier if you use the single fabric to help give you leverage instead of this one that has, 3 layers, 4 layers, whatever it is. Okay, so I've got it all the way inside out. Now I am just pulling it. Go ahead and take the clips off. Lord. Now, I'll go ahead, put my hand back in, and poke out the corners. Okay. Push the lining inside. Smooth everything out. Now I'm going to put my finger under the end of the zipper here and pop the tab out like that. Okay. I'm going to do that same thing over here on the other side. Under the zipper pull, put my finger and pop it out. Now, there is one side, almost finished. Almost. We need to pull the lining back out. And trust me, you don't want to forget this part. If you leave it to the end, you might forget. Alright. Pop my corners out here. And that opening, we're just going to flip inside. 3/8 of an inch. You can iron this if you need to go press it. Or I'm just going to use my fingers. Or you can put clips or pins in. And take it back to the machine. And sew across the hole. Close to the edge. Using a shorter stitch length. Okay, back stitching. Flip your threads. Burn those edges, the ends of the thread if you need to. Okay, now you can push that back inside. And that half is completely done. All right. Now, we're going to do the same thing with this side. Okay. So, take the completed side and fold it in. And fold it up or whatever. This one is a little harder, okay? So for it, I tend to go ahead and fold the bottom up, pull my bottom down, the other top, and clip it and go sew. If you have straight pins, you can, here, fold one corner up and then fold the ends, the sides up to meet it. My clip may not be big enough. Nope. But you can use a sewing pin if you want to chance that. I don't. I've never sewn over my finger, but I have poked myself so many times. Okay. And this is where a safety pin will come in handy again, because you can fold up your ends and clip it and pin it in place. And you can do that every side. I'm not going to. That's so thick. Now, let's make sure the zipper's open for the one we're about to sew together. Okay. Fold up the edge of the completed one, the bottom, and fold over the new one and go ahead and clip that in place. Maneuver it with your fingers however you need to. Clip your corners and then go back and clip the middle. Okay. So now I can sew that right sides together. And if you want, you can push the rest of it into the middle. Okay. And go ahead and put some clips there to hold everything in place. Clips, pins, whatever you got. Whatever you are most comfortable with. Alright. And again, when the zipper, you want the bulk of the zipper tab to be folded in toward the lining. Okay. Match up your outer pieces as best you can and clip that in place. That's actually a good place for a pin because you can pin it not right on the edge and it'll hold everything in place. Okay. Let's do the same thing with the other side. You see how that is almost to the edge? Push it in. Stuff it down in there. Grab a couple of pins, clips, clip it together. Push, push, push. You don't want to sew that. Alright. Match up your outer pieces where you sewed the zipper together. The zipper pointing to the lining. Clip it. And then we're going to sew all the way around like we did before, leaving a turning space. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start right here. And this is a good reason to have your seam guide so that your pieces are stitched together with the same seam allowance and they end up the same size when the bag is finished. Because you would not want one part of the bag to be bigger than the other. Okay, I don't know if you can see there's a bump right here where that's folded up, so I'm going to make sure that I keep my fingers pressed down, holding my outer pieces of fabric together while I stitch all the way to the end, stopping about 3/8 of an inch. Raising my foot, pivoting, and the same thing over here. You can feel the lumps and the bumps where that other piece of fabric is, where the rest of the bag is, because you've got it all folded up on itself. Okay. Coming down to the zipper tabs. Slow down if you need to. And go over that bump. Get your lining pieces held together. Make sure everything is lined up. All the way down. Stitched over about 2 inches. Now I'm going to flip this over and do the same thing. Starting at the same corner. Making sure that my fabric, my first bag is pushed toward the middle. Back stitching. For security. And again, it's a little thick up there, almost to the top of the outer fabric, ready to meet the lining. Okay. All the way down, turn. Clip. Let's see. My automatic thread cutter is not cooperating. Now, again, clip the corners as close to the stitches as you want, but not through them. Singe the ends of the thread. But don't set your bag on fire. There's anything else loose there. Now, Again, birth that one more time. Open up the hole and go in and grab the other side of the bag, grab the bottom corners, whatever it takes for you to turn this right side out. We are one seam away from being finished, as long as everything was sewn together correctly. Okay. Hand back in to help put the corners outside. I think this would be great with rounded corners too at the bottom. I may do that with my next one. I may write that into the pattern. Okay. Stuff the lining back in. Finger under the zipper tab and pop it out. Same thing on the other side. Okay. It looks great. Okay, now, I don't know which side that was, but we need to sew up the lining. It was this one. Pull that back out. You don't have to pop the corners out like this on the lining. It just makes it easier to sew across the end. Alright. A lot of times you can just stick your fingers in, give it a tug, and it automatically folds down how it needs to. Okay. Thread the clip there. Now, stitch that birthing hole closed, and we are done. Let me clip that thread. Okay, so now push the lining back inside. Now is when you will check for other loose threads. I see one. I think this is from when I was quilting it and had to change bobbins or something. So there we go. We are done, y'all. Alright. Here's the crossbody strap. Give it a good press. The zipper's open the same way. I don't have my phone because I'm recording on it, but here's a super big spool of thread comb. You can just stick right in there. A hidden pocket for your phone. Kudos. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. Then I hope you come back and see what I'm stitching some other time. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Bye.